Hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of the SME Strategy Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. All of our guests are special, but every guest is special in their own way. Faisal has been on the Deloitte Fast list 3 times, Fast 50, Fast 100. He has written tons of books. Can't even read his resume. I could. He's a technologist who learns, does, and applies. He writes books to contribute. And what I think is really cool, especially now in 2025, so we're recording this April 2025, you look at where the world is. There are things moving fast. There are things that are converging. There are things that are diverging. Leaders like you have to manage changes. And I don't want to say like never before because I haven't been around for 80 years. But if you think of AI and you think of technology and you think of the infinite multitudes of application, I think it takes a brain to think about it, ironically. And then there's all of the considerations of how to do it well, how to do it ethically, how to do it at scale. And that's one of the things that I wanted to speak with Faisal Hoque today about his perspective on AI, his perspective on technology, how he sees the world as a technologist, a business leader, an entrepreneur. I'm just so excited to chat. So Faisal, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Hopefully I got your bio okay-ish.
It's no worries.
So what, is there anything that I missed? Is there anything else that you want our leaders to know about you? What are you chewing into right now, other than, of course, your newest book?
Look, I'm an entrepreneur, so I have always some venture going on. So I've got a couple of companies. I also do a lot of work with our government, with a federal partner, which is called CSCI. But aside from that, I write a lot. Aside from the books, I constantly writing something. And publishing in different places. So that's about it. And I love SMEs because as an entrepreneur, I have small companies and I love the space. So I love to talk to the SME owners and the leaders.
Excellent. And just so you know that his, book, if you think of rankings, it was ranked #1 on a publication. Let me make sure I got this one. The Wall Street Journal. That's a joke, everybody. I know what the Wall Street Journal is. So let's talk. How are you seeing the world? Because obviously, as somebody who's written so many books, you digest, you create. Looking now, 2025, looking forward, what are some of the things that you think CEOs and leaders should be aware of and should consider as we enter this next age of the economy, next age of business, next age of industry?
I think we are in major uncertainty. We are talking on a very weird day because, as you know, market is melting as we speak. So there is economic uncertainty, there is geopolitical unrest, and there is a massive transition that's going on in the technology space because AI is kind of taken over. We haven't seen that level of revolution in a quite a while in terms of technology because, when the internet came, there was a big thrust of change, and then we seen bits and pieces of it as social media taken over. But now we're entering a space where AI, because of the very nature of technology, the AI, whereby AI is not just a technology, it's very active, if I can use that word active. It has a level of intelligence that we have never seen before. So how we use it, how we partner with it, how we control it, how we build ethics around it, how we think business differently is a monumental factor, right? So it's a changing. We always say it's a changing world, but somehow standing here on April of 2025, it feels like it just coming from all direction.
Yeah, which is sometimes, for us as a strategic planning firm, we say, hey, the multiple destination trap, because if you're managing so many things at once, you have all of those considerations. What I see is, It's going to be reduction in forces. Organizations are going to have to create a new kind of normal for their business. And fortunately, I would think, AI as a tool is one that is, let's call it multifaceted. But I think the most interesting thing that perspective on it is that it's active. It's not like putting in, SharePoint or Basecamp or something and it's a set it and forget it. It is continuously evolving. There's more unknowns than knowns. And yesterday I was talking to a friend about like a software development platform, and he's like, this one, this one, this one. I was like, none of these companies could have existed 2 years ago, like
Yeah.
almost guarantee. So how do leaders and leadership teams, from your lens, take advantage of these opportunities in technology while it is so malleable, flexible, and fast moving and ever changing?
Look, I mean, you have to kind of start with your core purpose for any business. What do you want to be? You cannot be all thing to everybody, right? So if you try to be I mean, this is one of the biggest mistakes many of the small companies make, because they just become very opportunistic and doesn't focus, doesn't have a purpose, and you're just chasing opportunities and you get very fragmented very quickly, right? So the focus and the purpose, your core purpose, is crucial. Start there, and then you start thinking about, okay, if you and you can have a purpose that's aspirational, that can also be short term, whatever the case may be, but then you have to kind of map that purpose and aspiration with your current capability, and look at technology as an enabler, not the factor. So for example, you cannot get enamored by the latest and greatest consumer technology if you're in a B2B space, right? If you're in a B2B space, you may think of using AI in one way. If you're in a B2C space, you may think of AI in a different space. So, you asked me about why I wrote, that you were talking about my new book. One of the reasons I wrote this new book is because I wanted to look at, AI from this angle of a balanced perspective, because there are people who are extremely afraid of it, and then there are people who think that this is the answer. This is all there is to, right? There's nothing else. We have somehow arrived. So in the book, I mean, we taken this very philosophical outlook that, how do you, because it's an active technology, how do you live up to your potential as a individual human being, but also as an organization and as a society, and then how do you balance it with opportunity and risk? So we introduced this framework called Open, that kind of allows you to go through the opportunities, the various opportunities, by starting with your purpose and creating a slew of portfolio of opportunity, and then how do you execute those opportunities with various capabilities and return on those capabilities, right? But we also introduced this framework called CARE, and CARE stands for, it's really a governance framework that basically starts with catastrophic scenario that you can create, both for your organization and through your product and services, that you need to be aware of before you dive into serious AI, not just consumer AI, but enterprise AI is very different than the consumer AI. So this balanced perspective is very critical for any business leader that's driven by purpose. So you can use AI as a knowledge worker that's saying, hey, I want to use AI as a partner to do research, content creation, whatever. You can also use AI for your inventory management, your customer care, your product innovation, et cetera, right? So you have to kind of rack and stack and see where it plays a role and where you're going to get the biggest ROI for your investment, but also for the people that you have in the organization.
Yeah. Very so everybody, Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI, Transcend. It's the next big idea club must read. So, check that out. And what I'm, taking away from where we're at here so far, of course, the CARE framework. And I don't think most people would have thought of an AI framework starting with catastrophic. And so I think opens the door and opens up the conversation to the pros and the cons of artificial intelligence, of these, active technologies. Because I think, especially now, I don't want to say desperation. It's not desperation, but, if you look at the markets, where the state of them, and who knows the state of them when you listen to this episode, everybody, but, you're looking for the opportunity. But there is, a requirement of a duty of care as an organization, especially if you're one of the biggest organizations in the world. We have leaders from top organizations. You could see this and say, hey, if you're an SME, you might say, hey, let's rock and roll. Let's put this thing out. Maybe it'll help us make better pictures. To your point that, consumer AI. But if you're incorporating this into like a system of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and you're feeding it juice, it could expand to a whole new level. And this is like beyond my depth. So, Faisal, as you look at the risks of AI and that we'll call it ethical concerns of AI, what are some of the things that you'd want our listeners to consider? There's the upside, and then there's the potential of negative and downside. Maybe you touch on both, actually.
Sure. I mean, look, the first, yeah, we have to think about AI as not just another tool, because I think that's limited thoughts. Because it's not like, as you said, it's not just implementing a CRM tool or your the desktop automation tool. It's much more than that, right? So because there is a dependency factor, there is a reliance factor, there is a outsourcing factor that we have never seen before. What I mean by that, let's say you start with, hey, write my chat GPT, write my email, or you can say, okay, generate my image, or write my article, whatever the case may be. There is, and and this is not new in the sense that we have been using AI and being manipulated, if I can use that word, for quite a while, meaning the things we buy, the news we consume, the show we see, right? There's an algorithm, call it suggestive or manipulation, intentionally or unintentionally, and we all kind of gotten used to it, right? So it's reaching to the next level. So I'll start with the individual risk point of view. There's a mental risk, there's an economic risk, there's a spiritual risk, and there's a physical risk. Because imagine pretty soon, because AI is also beginning to manifest into physical thing aside from the virtual thing, right? Meaning, if you look at that, if you look at the like the last few weeks of announcement from NVIDIA and other places where they're going to be humanoid robots. So pretty soon, I don't want to get up from my desk because I want to have my A2D2 come and serve my lunch, right? Or you go, you have a self-driving car that's driving you wherever you want to go. So there's actually a physical risk element to it, where we're just all going to get very lazy, mentally and physically, and spiritually, because we're not really pushing our, the human beings are very non-pattern driven, right? We're each very different, and we have our own creative process and thought process, and we are motivated or discouraged by different things, right? So if you start outsourcing all that, then you're really outsourcing the humanity, right? So there's that individual risk. Now look at it from an organizational point of view, right? So organization creates products, they create service. Organization has people that are part of the organization. At least so far, that's what organization is, and it has purpose, and it has a impact on the planet as a whole, right? So organization based, depending on how they think about AI and use that, use AI, will have impact on product, people, planet, and purpose, because we can over automate, and we can all of a sudden start really diminish human capabilities, because we're just pushing it that far. And the idea of that we're going to just reskill everybody, I don't know, I don't know what the trajectory, and how do you keep up with the pace of automation versus the pace of upskilling and reskilling. And this, and it's debatable that whether you will actually outpace the human capabilities with AI capabilities, and you'll have a whole bunch of people that are just sitting around and unemployed. There could be economic impact, but there could be also social impact. Because if you look at conflict zone, because of my work in duty and working across the globe, all the conflict zone starts by a bunch of people who doesn't have purpose and economically deprived or underserved, right? So you could create a scenario that could be catastrophic in terms of you have a lot of people that doesn't have work, and and then in the context of writing the book, I not only ended up talking to a lot of business leader and organizational leader, but I also did talk to a lot of government people and people who are trying to establish legislative framework to put some guardrail, because we have never seen a technology in human history that can be actually smarter than us and actually can create for itself. Like, even if you look at nuclear energy or pharmaceutical energy, which are heavily regulated, they don't think for itself. It's regulated because we don't want rogue agents to get held of nuclear energy, or have some rogue agents build up a pharmaceutical factory behind our backyard and start populating the market with biological activities, right? So it's very complex. It's not as simple as anything we've seen before. So there's positive element of AI in the sense, like already talked about it, basic things like, okay, AI as a co-creator, AI as a co-worker, AI as an assistant, AI as a physical labor that can do more stuff than the two of us may be able to do. I mean, we cannot lift a crane, but a robot can, because it has more physical and more accuracy, maybe, right? I was My wife was telling me this morning that, hey, did you hear this story about this? In New York, they're using AI to listen to this, the sound of train rail and the sound of the subway, and because the employees can listen to the sound and kind of figure out where the tracks could be not quite right, and the trains are not on track, but the AI has a little more better accuracy, so it can suggest where you should be looking at, right? So that's a good thing, because you can actually reduce the risk of accidents, perhaps more because of it with your decision making. It's not AI who's making the decision; it's suggesting pattern. It's a pattern-driven model it's creating that allows you to make better decision. I mean, and I know there's huge implication on healthcare as an example, right? Because we are like, think about cancer as an example where AI can create much better predictive model, because cancer requires very patient-specific, customized treatment, right? And so based on the DNA, based on the type of cancer you have, AI can actually do a much better predictive modeling than a bunch of oncologists can do, just from touch and feel or gut, or even getting the data, and because the computing power of AI is much greater. So there's positive and negative, right? So how we go about it is going to be the challenge. It's not going to be the challenge, does it have the capability? It's going to be the challenge of, where do we apply the capability, and how does that give us a return, but also has a positive impact, right? And it's complex. And it's, as you said, it's like, how do you plan for the unknown? Because we're dealing with the unknown of the unknown, right? So the trick is creating, you talked about strategic planning, right? A trick is creating that capability, the core leadership and management capabilities, where it allows you to constantly evolve and look at these things from an opportunity and risk point of view, and see where the best case uses are. So it requires a much deeper level of assessment. It requires much deeper level of pausing before you jumping into it, and creating a roadmap that actually is going to give you the return, but also have a positive impact.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think that risk opportunity balance, depending on the application, consumer AI versus enterprise AI, as more and more organizations, we'll call it, feel more comfortable or daring to build stuff themselves. Like the idea of those guardrails to like there are guardrails in place in other the physical realm, and then as you enter into the digital realm, you might be tempted to push the boundaries more and more, and it'll be interesting to see as more players do that. Like right now you think, if you've got the top 500 companies in the world or whatever, they have some fiduciary responsibility, but as a person, if I built an AI agent that I let just run wild on stuff, could take tons of decisions. And then you start
Yeah.
getting into the movies. And it's, not to fearmonger, make people worried, but I do think it is a responsibility of a leader, of all leaders in this future world of technology, to have those conversations, to build the frameworks such that we can manage the good and the bad, have the positive impact, recognize that sometimes, even with our best intentions, it has unintended consequences, like you had mentioned with folks with their economic opportunity. Go on if you got something to add on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a if you look at, the there's a various element of governing AI. There's ethical responsibility, there's legislative framework, there's organizational responsibility, there's platform vendors responsibility, because we're not all creating the AI engine. Only handful of people actually can create the AI engine because it requires a huge amount of infrastructure. I'm talking about the big tech vendors, right? And then most of us are actually, meaning when I'm saying most of us, I'm talking about both large organization and small organization, as well as government. We're all users, and we're just creating derivative models based on whatever the models that these large tech vendors are building, both hardware, software, and infrastructure point of view, right? And then there is individual. The responsibility actually resides on all of us, in terms of what we do as an individual, what we do as a business, and the leaders who are running those business, the platform vendors, how they're pushing it out there, government, how they're establishing the legislative guardrail, and then there's ethics and there's law and there's, the behavioral patterns. All of that, kind of plays a role in terms of quote unquote what we are dubbing now as responsible AI. It's not a one person's job; it's collective. So where we'll end up, from 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, it all depends what we're doing collectively.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, I think first of all, thank you, Faisal, for sharing today. I think it behooves anybody who is a leader or aspires to be a leader, whether that's in government, healthcare, technology, community, pick up the book, proceeds go to charity, and just be curious about this future of technology for how it supports or hinders us as a society, and so that you can use the powers for good and not evil, as I tend to say. So Faisal, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Where can
Thanks for having
people
me.
learn more about your work, your impact, and what you're talking about?
Sure. I mean, you can find me on my website, which is faisalhoque.com, and you'll see associated projects with it. You can obviously find me on LinkedIn. That's where I post something every day. So connect with me on LinkedIn or just follow me on LinkedIn. And there's a ton of free content, as I was sharing with you. I do the writing and sharing strictly for sharing purposes, so nobody has to buy anything or give me anything to learn from it. So connect me either one of those places.
I appreciate that, Faisal. Thank you so much for sharing today. It was a blast, and just I think it really gives everybody lots of stuff to consider as we move forward. And of course, you as a leader, as a generous leader, being sharing and willing to share every day. So I just want to thank you on behalf of other folks. Your contributions to them. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the SME Strategy Podcast with Faisal Hoque. You can look him up online, read his books, check in with him on LinkedIn, look at where he might be in the world on his adventures. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like and subscribe. Helps us, grow the podcast, get it into the hands of more people. And then if you're looking to have conversations about what the future is happening with your organization, we do facilitate strategic planning sessions. We also have a digital download toolkit to help you on your internal strategy conversations, even if you don't need a facilitator. So once again, thanks for listening. Appreciate you being here. I look forward to sharing with you the next one. Thank you, Faisal, again for being our guest today. And folks,
Thanks for having me.
we'll catch you next time.